Everybody, this is 1,164 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, and was code reded way before he went missing. Okay, the code red started way before he went missing because he was a whistleblower. He was a whistleblower. He pulled on a string. Um, Absolutely, CPS is involved, which makes me think about the emergency intake center and 85,000 missing, unaccounted for minors, as they say, missing children. And, you know, I don't know. We're just little people. Um, we're just little people, and we have to ask the question, where's our son? What happened to our son? And the insanity that has surrounded him was way over who we are. And so we knew that that there were lies. We knew that there was a cover up because they were acting out in a much larger realm than who we are. Um, so I don't know if that makes sense to you, but Richard, just learned how to drive and learned how to drive in Ireland. Okay, so on the other side of the road. And anyway, it's um, it's really interesting how they took Richard and they put this smear campaign on him that was way overboard. I mean, um, and they get away with it. That it is so organized. Let's see if I can get on because we have so much breaking news, and it's late. Um, I mean, I've been very used to this burning the midnight oil, but it has been one crazy day. um, you're going to hear me say a lot. The cogs are just going crazy trying to put all this together and what they have done. We have breaking news today. So hang in there. Hang in there with me, with Team Find Richard Halliday, because I have to try to get this out, and I have to try to get this out in a right way to help this case, to help find Richard, to help loosen the they're just holding on so tight to the crime. They're holding on so tight and it's crumbling. They're holding on too tight. You know how, like, you grab an egg, and if you're grabbing too tight, it just breaks. It just breaks apart, and you can't stop the egg yolk and the egg white from gushing out, and even the eggshells starting to crumble. And this is what's going on. They're holding on so tight to the crime that they're exposing it all. They're exposing it all. And I hope that makes sense after what I'm going to tell you. I just want to make sure that I'm on. There is there's a lot of new information coming out about Danae Katzen, um, that is worthy of looking into. Like I said, we have an insider now inside that inner circle, and we also have an alliance of Team Find Richard Halliday. I want to call him Team Find Richard Halliday, an alliance. They're on Fort Bliss, and so we're getting this information. And I just wanted to tell you that Danae Katzen is a very interesting person in this case. Very interesting person. You might know her as going on KTSM with Nastasia Paloma, and and not being truthful. Let's just say that. Misleading, misleading us, having a role in misleading this whole investigation through the media. And it's strange that Natalia Paloma and KTSM have not come out like Angela Kercherga to straighten out the damage that was done. To tell the community there on Fort Bliss and in El Paso that what was said on there about the soldier, what was said in that whole interview, um, this person that was, and what was seen on TV and what was there in the studio, because we were there in the studio with Danae Katzen, was just two different events. Um, and now we're getting, and of course we know her as Credit Card Girl, and then she became one of the 10 most wanted fugitives for El Paso because of her extensive criminal history, crime, just crime everywhere. And the whole story with the CID. So now we're getting even more information about her, and it's so as soon as I corroborated, as soon as I understand that there's some real clarification needed on certain points, and then I will mention that. But I just wanted to give everyone a heads up because she is such a key person in this case from the very beginning, because we met with her. We met with her, and she outright lied to us to hinder this case. The boldness, oh my gosh. Anyway, so I think that this is something to mention. Okay, so the breaking news. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for the love. Uh, the breaking news now. We have confirmation from the Department of State that the law enforcement community, as well as the chain of command in the military, knew early on that Richard had been murdered, that Richard was deceased, that parts of his remains, or, well, I want to get this right, but that some of the remains were in Mexico. Were they all there? Were some of them there? We want answers, but now we have it from the Department of State. We have it confirmed that it was a code red, that he was murdered by someone in the military, covered up by the military, that they knew early on that he was deceased, and that early on they called off the search for Richard. They called off the investigation for Richard. Okay? They called off the investigation for Richard. So this is really important because remember they kicked us out? They kicked us out. And yesterday, and we're getting, and that's not all the breaking news, and I was led by God today to make this little TikTok video saying, everybody, we're going to have a lot of breaking news. A lot of breaking news. And why? Why are we getting a lot of breaking news? Because for 3 years, we've been working diligently every day, nonstop, with the live streams, with talking with people, with going to Fort Bliss, with having all of those rallies, with going through all of the screenshots, going through everything, making timelines, making charts, um, researching, writing letters, pleading. And now all of that is starting to pay off because we have evidence that through all of those years we've collected hard evidence, circumstantial evidence, and irregularities. So um, this is really important. So we're collecting all of this evidence, and now, because of all of the work that has gone on with Team Find Richard Halliday, we're starting to get institutional support. So that's why we received a letter today from Bill Hicks's office. Bill Hicks is the DA there in El Paso. He took the place of Yvonne Rosales, and absolutely he has been involved in this case. That is his job. That is his job. And so today we received a certified letter from him. We are going through it. It's, a lot of legal. And so you know, we're getting a little bit more educated when it comes to all the legal jargon, but we're still learning it. And so we have to process it. We have to think about it. Um, and of course, we have connections, military connections, legal connections that will help us. People that are smarter than us. And I want to make that very, very clear because of what I'm about to tell you about the State Department. And of course, when I think about Vanessa Guillen's situation, when I think of Enrique Roman Martinez's situation, when I look at Austin Hawke's situation, Caleb Smithers' situation, and Lavina Johnson's situation, and on and on and on. And I wish I had the whole list in front of me. I know I have a list in my own archives of 50 very early on when we were still at Fort Bliss, when we were having our rallies, and one day it snowed there, and so we had to cancel the outdoor rally, and so I had an indoor candle lighting rally, and in 30 minutes I received 50 names of service members that needed to be prayed for, that their families needed to be prayed for, and we held that rally. Um, so that was, I couldn't believe it. It was very impactful because in 30 minutes to get 50 names, exactly 50, was, I had so many candles going that I wasn't totally prepared, and the wax was dripping down afterwards. I had to let it cool, and I had to take the wax off of the floor. I mean, that's how much wax was burning for the candles that we lit and prayed for during that live stream rally. Um, to do what we have accomplished is absolutely amazing. Not as amazing as what Richard accomplished. Even, yes, he paid with his life, but he stood. That's why he paid for his life with his life, because he stood. But what we've learned today is even more sinister. Leilani Hart has made claim and claim and claim that her husband, James Hart, is like a, uh, a racist, white nationalist, just, and I don't know if I totally agree with that. Um, but of course, I don't know him that well. Uh, I just think if half of what she's saying, he's just a hateful person, right? But she claims that he's a racist, that he looks at people and does not judge them by the content of their character. Maybe by their social security number, maybe by do they have a criminal record, because if they have a criminal record they're no good to me. If they don't have a criminal record, then I can steal their identity and I can use their social security number to get me some loans or whatever. Maybe that's how he thinks. I don't know. I don't know. It's it's the fraud there, the fraud over and over and over again that I'm reading about from Leilani Hart. This is not me making these allegations against James Hart in the VA in charge of the IDS Pablo, the the Veterans Disabled Disability Health Board. It's not me, it's Leilani Hart. And reading through all of these things because she is part of Richard's case. Her files are in Richard's case, and so it's all connected. And she is a key suspect in Richard's case, along with her son, Dallas Hart, a key suspect, being in the military. And, she's making all these claims about them. So Leilani Hart, very clearly is saying that her husband, unfaithful. Why does she mention that? Because she's so unfaithful, right? But why does she mention that? Because he works for the VA. And that is not allowed. She wants to get him fired. And so she points out his fraud and the illegal use of social security numbers and identity theft and all of that. And a big part of what she's saying is that he's a racist. That he's a racist. That he treats people differently because he judges them from their background and from their family life and from the color of their skin, where they're from, and maybe by religion. I don't know. I don't know. But she's calling him a racist, okay? That he's just inhumane, right? He doesn't have any love for people, the people, except for whoever he chooses. And then he will, if they're doing kind of what he wants or whatever, he'll coach them to get a higher disability paycheck. I mean, Leilani is 100% disabled. Poche was 100% disabled. And I don't want to say that I don't support people that need the 100% disability. My dad was 100% disabled. I understand, uh, you know, I mean, just barely, just right before he passed away. Um, so I understand that kind of need to get that kind of care. And, we didn't even get the opportunity uh, to get the benefits for my dad. But I understand the need for them. I support disabled veterans. I want to say that. But if there is fraud, waste, and abuse in there, if that is being taken advantage of, then that needs to be scrutinized because we don't need to stress out the system so that the people that really need the help, um, the system cannot help those that really need the help because there's so much fraud, waste, and abuse. So that's what I'm saying. Um, I know it's so much mumbo jumbo, right? It's so much mumbo jumbo. But the point is that we were told today that the act on Richard was under the assumption that he was from a minority family. Now, you can ask Sammy because we were asked to play the race card early on, and we absolutely refused to do that. Absolutely. Because we feel that that race card is so abused. And, it's kind of like talking yourself into it. There's such a narrative out there. The more you talk about it, the more it happens. And, so I always have refused that, even in the how in our family, just refused it. And we're such a, and I don't really talk about this so much, but we're just an amazing family, right? We're just an amazing family. And I call us little because we're not in these criminal syndicates. And in order to get into these higher places, it seems like to me you have to almost sell your soul. So no thank you. No thank you. You can keep your fancy cars. You can, keep whatever, all your different houses and all that. No thank you. I will stay. I will stay a little person. I'm happy to stay a little person. Um, I don't want to join their sex cults. I don't want to join their uh, you know, to have to look away or participate in that whole pornography world. Um, I don't want to participate in the drug trafficking. I don't want to participate in this illegal weapons smuggling, taking advantage, or even equipment smuggling to take advantage of the American taxpayers. I don't want to do it. And so, Richard pulled on a string because he didn't want to do it either. How do we know? Because he has no criminal record. He has no criminal record. It's not me saying, oh, Richard didn't want to do it. I know him so well. No, he has no criminal record. He proved it himself. He's not even in the federal criminal database for even being a deserter because he didn't desert. He stood his ground. He stood his ground under the retaliation of a code red, and the code red escalated. And, so I know this because of the GOMAR, because of the permanent GOMAR, the permanency of the GOMAR. That is such a retaliatory uh, move on Major Clem Coward's, Major General Clem Coward's um, abuse of power. To take that tool and turn it into a weapon like that for, for nothing, right? Because on July 9th, the bottom fell out of it. He had no grounds for it. He needed to restore Richard. He needed to apologize for Richard, and he needed to give him some restitution for the pain and suffering. Absolutely. And that's not even talking about the Field Grade Article 15, which was also needed to be rescinded. Also, Richard needed to be restored. Also, Richard was needed to be given restitution for his pain and suffering. What they did to him with this code red. So that is really big. That July 9th, 2020 dismissal of all charges with him because he never pled guilty. Um, and they were just ravenous. His chain of command were just ravenous because he was a whistleblower and he made them mad. He made them mad. And I don't know if it was because of the equipment smuggling, if it was human trafficking, if it was the child sex stuff, if it was the drug trafficking. I don't know what it was. But but it reached higher people. The exposure would have exposed a criminal syndicate. I believe that it's the only obvious answer to why they would spend millions of dollars to cover up Richard's murder and why they would conduct a code red. And we were told today by the Department of State that absolutely he they knew very early on that he was dead, that he was deceased, that it had to do with Mexico. That's why the Mexican government was there at the task force. That's why the Mexican army, police, right? Um, why Mexico was so important in all of this, why Rob's testimony there in Mexico, when it was translated, was tampered with to make Richard look bad, to make Richard look like a drug dealer or whatever. Um, and that's not what Rob said at all. So there was a deal there. There was a dirty deal there. And we're trying to find out who in Mexico did the dirty deal to tamper with Rob's statement. Absolutely was tampered with. So this is breaking news that the Department of State would admit that they knew that Richard was deceased and that his remains were found in Mexico. And also that the DA from El Paso, Hicks, sent us a letter today. I think that's huge news too. So, so we have information now that corroborates that there was a code red on Richard, that all of that was done to him was retaliatory because they had no grounds. They had no grounds at all, even 2 weeks before he went missing. Okay, that also establishes a motive because what were they going to do? Say, oh, I'm sorry, and here's a restitution. Here's all your rank back. Here's a restoration and a restitution. Were they going to do that? Right? Were they going to rescind? I remember putting in the petition to rescind Richard's Feel Great article. It was so unjust. Then, before I even knew about the July 9th, 2020, before we even knew, we put in this petition. And and everyone was telling me they never do that. They would never resend a Feel Great Article 15. They would never do it. Okay, so what do? They murder the soldier? That's a better choice? They escalate the code red and murder him and then dismember him and then bury some of his remains in Mexico after flying it there, because this is all about a plane flying Richard's remains to a remote um, landing strip there and dumping his remains, right? Um, could a plane do that? Absolutely. Because, even though we are not part of the criminal cabal, we have a large family. a large, faithful family that is so talented. And one happens to be a pilot. One happens to know how to fly around Texas and into Mexico. And has flown the very same kind of plane that is alleged to have flown Richard's remains into Mexico. So this is very, very possible, very easy to do, no problem to do it, and was explained to us how it could happen. And yeah, millions of dollars and so much trouble and holding on so tight. What in the world? And when we connect the dots, we do understand a little, because this reaches up higher, and it's big, big money. It's big money. And it's a shame that it shows that our chain of command that is supposed to be there for our soldiers, for our service members, is not. They're there, and they use their power, and they use the tools given to them by us, the weapons given to them by us, the equipment given to them by us, to serve a foreign and domestic enemy, not to defend the Constitution, the land, and the people. And there's so much corroborating evidence to that. That's a hard fact. And we're being told that the approval of the Code Red escalation was because, this is just what we were told today, was because the presumption was that Richard came from a minority family. If that doesn't make you so angry, how our military, uh, you know, the classes and the classes and the money and the money, and they still, and it has nothing really to do with the minorities except for the fact that that they believe they can get away with it. If that doesn't make you mad, it sure makes me so upset that you start a live stream kind of with a mumbo jumbo, because you're just inside. Um, so, what is the word? Disappointed? No. You're just disgusted. I'm just disgusted with this whole botched investigation. Because the very people that carry this out are minorities themselves. It is just, what? Like what? And I remember a soldier coming up to us during one of the rallies, and I've told this story before. He said, "Ma'am, I thought that Richard was a pathological liar." Really? Yeah. He said that he was born in Poland, that he was adopted, that he lived in Ireland and Germany, and that he joined the military from Korea. And I thought he was a pathological liar, that he was homeschooled. And then you come out here and you're doing these rallies, and I realized that what he said was true. So, what false narrative was being put out there to say Richard comes from a minority family and that, yeah, you can take him out. Yeah, you can take him out. That's one of the things that we have to have, is to get away with this. What? That's what we were notified today from the Department of State. That Richard was taken out very early on. He was absolutely, everyone knew he was deceased. Absolutely, I believe that because of the FBI employee, the father in law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd AdCom. Um, he's dead. Shh, shh. So Nadal Baim knew Richard was dead. Bradford Bugado, Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado, knew that Richard was dead. Um, and that was in the G3 of the 32nd AdCom. And that was in October of 2020. Like, it's a waste of time to put up the flyers, take down the flyers. You don't need to. He's been found. They knew. And the PAO, Lieutenant Colonel Allie Payne, she knew. Are you ready to hear about your son? Yeah. But she forgot to be honest and say he's deceased. He was murdered. But she did say to media, and we have it, the article. She said to media that they were um, cooperating with the Department of State looking for Richard's remains over there in Juarez. She didn't say the word remains. She said they were looking for him and indicating it was remains. And the same thing with the December search for the mock Afghanistan village. She said that in the same paragraph, I believe, that they even looked there for Richard's remains. So now we have another source that from the State Department that says Richard was murdered early on and that he was murdered with the assumption that they could get away with it because he was from a minority family. That should make everybody mad as hell. Mad as hell. And I think that we need to sign that petition to get this congressional inquiry and get to the bottom of this. That they retaliated against him. And maybe that was just an excuse because of all the crime that they were covering up and that. And I just don't think that they would let Richard just walk away. I just don't think they would at that point because, Richard could, absolutely July 9th changed everything. So, and Bill Hicks coming, I had to sign for the letter that was delivered today from Bill Hicks's office, the DA, and him being involved with the AG, the Texas AG. Um, that would be Ken Paxton. I told you Ken Paxton is it's very important. He has, I think, second only to, or third to, well, he has the largest, let's say, conservative Republican um, attorneys general team in the country. And so it's, he has loads of lawyers, loads of lawyers. So this is a really big deal for us. And we're trying to follow the monies on this. The monies that they spent for the Petrocrucius case, what they're still spending it on, um, and also for our son's case. And that, I'll explain that later why that is, that we want both um, open records because they are there. It's public record. Everybody should request the record for the Patrick Crucius case, why they're spending millions of dollars on that case, when it is really a slam dunk case. And this is not disregarding anybody that was murdered in that. It is just they have everything and they should, carry out the justice. But they're spending millions and millions, these prosecutors, and of taxpayers' money. So, and everyone should ask for an open records request from Miss Amy Schnotty, and because it's your right as a taxpayers to know how much they've spent on, and it's millions, y'all, it's millions, on the Richard Halliday case. So now we have to confirm that from what we have gotten with that office, and so that's all being, we're getting that institutional support. So we have all these years of evidence. Now we're getting institutional support. Institutional support plus the evidence equals accountability. And I don't know how long they can hold on to that egg that they've just crushed, because they have. They've crushed the egg and everything is being exposed. Okay, let me read your comments. Marilyn, thank you so much for your prayers. Danielle, thank you so much for yours. Anicia, thank you for your prayers and your love. And do you believe because he joined from Korea, people misjudged him possibly? I think that they misjudged Richard because, you know, he did not go to American schools. It's a big deal. He did not go to European schools. It's a big deal because there's a lot of grooming going on in the schools. You're being taught by your peers. And Richard had so many more experiences. It wasn't just me. We were putting together Drum Row. We bought Drum Row when it was just cow muck, sheep muck, right? The old stones. Do you know how many stones that Richard lifted from a young kid? You know, uh, we lifted so much stone, and we built things. Um, we built our garage and our shed and our house, and we did stonework on our house. He mixed concrete. Um, we didn't have TV per se. We had videos that we watch. We go to the library and get CDs, what we wanted to watch. And I controlled that to a certain extent. But, you know, we were busy. we were going back. We were living in the apartment in Germany, and we were doing all kinds of traveling over there and bike riding and rollerblading. We lived out with the farmers, and I was sick. I was so sick, and it took me a long time to recover. And I one of the ways I recovered was I strapped on some rollerblades and said, "Come on, kids, let's go." I had four kids, young, and I was so sick. Um, my life was at risk, and praise God, I'm alive today. Um, so I just to get my balance back, to get my strength back, I strapped on all of the rollerblades and all of the helmet and everything like that, and went out there, um and when we were out there, we met the farmers, and we learned so many things. And we would go, we could ride our bike and rollerblade to Schwetzigen Schloss. To Schwetzigen, look that up. From Neuroth to Schwetzigen Schloss. Um, that was Richard's life. It was, of course, schoolwork. I mean, he clept out. He went on base and he clept out of German because he was going to the Volkshochschule, which was in Kaiserslautern with his brother. He would get on the train and go into town and go to the class and come back, um, and he clept out of college math at the age of 15. We were part of the American homeschool co-op. We were, of course, he was very active in our church. Um, Happy. My gosh, what a fantastic life to uh, be be right there in Heidelberg, right? Heidelberg, just amazing city, right there on the Neckar and the Rhine, um, and also in Ireland, right there behind St. Mel's, the original St. Mel's Cathedral, where St. Patrick, that's St. Patrick's nephew. I mean, that's where he grew up, and it wasn't drugs around him. Now he went to karate, and of course they had foul language and stuff like this. Um, big deal, right? Big deal. But he wasn't surrounded by a criminal cabal, by sex cult people, um and just callous, very very sexual, very callous, and corrupt. And to go to Korea, and I sent him to stay with his sister. Rob and I, were like, this is a great opportunity. He loves Korea. He loved the Korean dramas, the music, the K-pop, all that. Um, and we were like, okay, you want to go stay with your sister? This is a great opportunity, and we will, Hannah and James, my son-in-law, they found a Korean language culture school to go to for, I think it was 6 weeks long. Go and learn it. He loved it. He had a great time. Come back to Ireland, and it was like, hey, I want you to learn how to work a business a little bit. Allison wants to do this barista thing, so they got on a train, went into Dublin, and took this barista kind of internship. Um, that was his life. So He had a lot to lose in his mind when he saw children being trafficked and sexually abused and or just neglected. He had a lot to lose because he had seen um, what life is. It's not trafficking children. I mean, like Elaine said, our neighbor, um, Richard would go up there and help with the boys. She lost her husband, and there were accidents after that. And we were like, I didn't want to charge her one penny. I wouldn't let her pay Richard because of everything she'd been through. You got to be neighborly. You've got to go and say, "Hey, take a break. I'll watch the boys for you. You need some help uh, around the house?" I mean, she just lost her husband. It was a horrible thing with two young boys, and Joseph was the best neighbor. I mean, that was so devastating for us. And if you ever read her character account on Richard, you would understand what I'm saying. So Richard had so much to lose. He wasn't in that kind of culture that he and this is what Rob and I were warning him about. We didn't realize it was so bad though, because I guess we had been living overseas for too long too. We saw things, we knew things. Um, but that's not the circles we were in. We were in a whole different world. And so when he joined from Korea, he was never surrounded by a race thing that that just didn't enter into our life. Um, it really is, even though you meet racist people everywhere, but that didn't enter into our life. And so for him to join the military, we knew exactly that his plan was to aspire, was to get his education, was to uh, get into law enforcement. We knew that. We didn't know how, we knew he loved it, but we didn't, when you're 20 years old, sometimes you want to change. You get in there, you find something else you want to do. You might change your mind. Well, he got into law enforcement and he was like, "Oh my gosh, Marlon Soto is a criminal. Tavita Nusa is a criminal. Leilani Hart is a criminal." And more and more. And so he absolutely met Belen, and she didn't have a lot to lose because this has always been her life. And for Richard to try to explain it to her or to anybody else, what was their response? "You're so weird." That's what she said to him. I heard it with my own ears. "You're so weird." Hey, Belen, there's more to life. There's more to life than this sex cult, okay? You're so weird. And here comes a young soldier, and it's like, I think you're a pathological liar. No, I'm not a pathological liar. But, I mean, Richard's not a woman. He's a pretty, his personality, he'd be like, all right, whatever. Okay, you don't believe me? Whatever. But I was born in Poland. I was adopted. I lived in Heidelberg and Germany and joined the military from Korea. I was homeschooled. And out of all of our children, he's the only one that never stepped foot. Because, Robert went to first grade in Poland, but Richard never went to school. He went to school, meaning barista or Volkshochschule or Korean language school or piano or the co-ops, but never had to go through the testing, never had to go through the peer all that peer stuff, you know. So he had a foundation that he could stand on. And so for them to say the things that they said about him, it was like, okay, whatever, find him and then we'll judge him. And I was totally confident. I was totally confident in him. And it's hard to explain to people because they'll say, "Oh, you're just a mom that thinks your son can't do anything wrong." No, no. When when you when you come from a certain kind of foundation, what you're saying is so insane, but whatever, I can't explain it. So you can think what you want, but let's find him and then we will judge him. Well, he was judged. He was judged. And he wasn't corrupt, and so they had to kill him. That's what happened. He stood his ground, and they thought he was weird. And the picture that I just put up with him, with that strength of, looking into the future. Like I said, he had a lot to lose because he knew the future was out there and he knew life was out there. And he wasn't tied to their criminal cabal. So, I didn't mean to go down on this road today. I really wanted to talk about the Department of State, um, the Department of Justice, the DA, the um, just the proof and the proof. I don't even know what kind of leaders we have anymore. I mean, and I really mean it, with leaders like this, who needs enemies? Who needs enemies? Because you see a soldier. And I remember being in one meeting and I said, "Oh, he got a 300 on his PT, he's distinguished honor graduate." And the general goes, "He wasn't that good." And I'm like, I really wanted to cuss. And I thought, how dare you? And he knew that Richard was murdered. He knew that they had found his remains, and that's what he said. And that's what he said. And he absolutely knew the reason why we kept saying the truth about Richard is because there was a organized smear campaign from within the army against Richard, a missing soldier. And we would look at them and say, "What's your problem?" Well, we know what their problem. They wanted us to go away because they had a murdered soldier, a brutally murdered soldier, and a huge cover up that implicates so many that they have to spend millions of dollars to cover it up. That's what their problem is. They had another, let's say, another Guian situation. R.I.P. Vanessa. And they were mad that they had another Guian situation because they were mad instead of what they needed to be true leaders. Yeah. And then they go, "Well, we don't know why we have such uh, low numbers. Why can't we get the recruits in? You know, it's because you guys work for yourself. You work for the enemy and foreign and domestic enemies. You're not there for the troops. You're working against the troops. You're warring against the troops. You're weaponizing your power, your tools that we've given you. You abuse your power against the troops. And then you also use the troops as your targeted uh, business plan for all of your corrupt dealings, be it illegal drugs, or be it the sex cult grooming, be it the human trafficking, or the pornography. And all pornography is child sex trafficking. All pornography is child sex trafficking. So be it, the weapons, the equipment, smuggling, whatever they're up to, because there's so much wrong on Fort Bliss, and it's systemic. And they just, they want to groom them to be criminals then too. And Richard refused to be a criminal. And we're really proud. Yesterday was he's our hero because he got through all of that peer pressure, all of that grooming, all of that chain of command pressure, and he has no criminal record. None. Zippo. Zero. Zero. But that makes him a target too, because that's a nice social security number to have. One that has no criminal record attached to it. So he definitely was targeted for many reasons, and then they made some mistakes. They made some mistakes on top of that, and that escalated the code red. That's what I believe. And that's where this is going. This is where the circumstantial evidence is pointing. This is where the hard facts are pointing. This is where the irregularities are pointing. And we appreciate everyone coming on here. They need to quit playing games and find Richard Halliday. Yep. Well, in the more, yeah, are there receipts for every cent that was supposedly allocated into looking? Yeah, we're going to find out about this Sarasota sheriffs because with the information that we got this week, and we have it on paper that they didn't have a warrant. They didn't have a warrant. Okay. Um, and we have this indication that they got a pretty penny for putting on that dog and pony show with this assault team from the Fugitive Apprehension Unit. They got a pretty penny. Yeah. From the state of Texas to the Sarasota, Florida Sheriff's Department. What, to scare us? To, I don't think it was to scare us. I think it was to an act to like, oh yeah, we're trying to find this dead soldier that we have the remains over in Texas for, or over in Mexico. Um, yeah, it was just a show. Yeah. They should be asking why they have such low morals. Absolutely. And they can't admit that morals need to be legislated. See, because that means they have to say, oh, the Ten Commandments are useful. The Ten Commandments are useful. The Ten Commandments are right. And the Ten Commandments are very limited in scope. So that means that we can't be tyrannical because they're very pinpoint on what is not allowed because they're negative. Thou shalt not do this, right? Thou shalt not. That is pinpointing um, the exact thing you can't do, which really hinders tyranny, and chaos, and these opened laws, and these buildings and buildings and buildings full of all these regulations that are so subjective, right? They're so subjective, and they can make anybody a criminal. But see, the Ten Commandments are not. It's very pinpoint. They're very, well, they're God's, right? They're brilliant. They're from heaven. And, so they have to admit that. And they don't want to admit that. They don't want to concede God. God is. So they just let the chaos go. And, so they want to be as God, right? And so they want to do all this weird stuff to our soldiers. And it becomes insanity. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming on. And I think that was huge news. And we're getting more and more. We have more to share with you tomorrow. And so, just thank you so much. And be long suffering. Thank you for being long suffering for us. And Rob always says, don't forget to say, we love you. We love you, because we would not be able to do this if it wasn't for people sharing, for people signing the petitions, for sending prayers and love every day. We would not, get this far, because it is the public, this social pressure that also pressures the institutional support. So that's how we're getting the institutional support, the oversight of all the people, because at the end of the day, we're the ones paying them. You're, oh, wow, but we're $33 trillion in debt. We'll never be able to pay it. It doesn't matter. We still pay them, the taxpayers, and so they're accountable to us. And so that's why you're so important. And we might be little people, but we're very, very, very important. And so always remember that. And God bless you all. Thank you so much. We love you, and have a great night.